to Diplo that I'm introduced to the whole IG field, and I'm glad I'm still able to work with them closely in the capacity building program, special edition for the Arab region that we're doing. I know that many people from the Arab region subscribe for this event, and I think I would like to leave a few minutes, for people to join us. But meanwhile, I will introduce a little bit, IGMENA program and what we're doing. The program is specifically designed for building capacity of civil society from the Arab region on the subject of internet governance. It has been in place running for like the last 2 years, and we managed to conduct several trainings online and offline in the Middle East with regard to this topic. The aim is to obviously gather all voices from the Arab region, civic actors in general. We try to be diverse as much as we can, and we try as well to include these people in the policy process, to introduce them to the policy dialogue, regional, local, and global. So we have a website, www.igmena.org, and it's quite an interactive platform where we update blogs, and we have a lot of articles specific to the Arab region. We have articles about IG, but also specifically about issues that are more relevant to the local or the regional context. So I will leave you with the website to see the work that we've been doing for the last 2 years. And of course, if you have any questions, or if you would like to be part of the initiative, or you can help us with any ideas, or if you want to be involved, please email us. Today's webinar, thanks Diplo for the invitation to lead this before an important global event like the Global IGF, which is happening in Turkey this year. Turkey is, a melting pot between two regions, and geographically is quite relevant to the MENA region, which explains, probably a strong representation from different stakeholders in the forum this year from the Arab region. We'll speak about that later on, but we're going to start today by discussing the Arab region participation in Net Mondial and the outcome of the Arab region contribution. I think all of you probably are very familiar with this process and what happened this year. It was exceptionally a very busy year when it comes to the global scene, the global internet policy scene. And this is thanks to the Snowden revelation. The good news is that there is more attention drawn to the topic of internet governance. It gained a lot of popularity and it became more mainstream. But I think it created a lot of other parallel processes that we will try to go through. The Arab region participation in the meeting itself, it was quite limited and restricted. There were a few members, from the community who managed to make it, but I think the added value of Net Mondial as a global meeting is that it offered a very, very good platform for remote participation, and most of the job was done online before we got to the meeting, meaning they opened the floor for the contributions to come from all over the world. Literally everyone and anyone could provide input on deciding how the IG map should look like in the future, and how should the ecosystem of internet governance should be implemented. And I think the response that was witnessed in the platform of Net Mondial was quite tremendous, because they had over 180 contributions from all over the world, plus almost 1,000 comments on the input. The Arab region contribution was featured in I think the Kuwaiti Association for Engineers, who provided a contribution. There was Yemen, there was a contribution from Sudan, from Tunisia, and there was a wider IG community contribution, which reflected the main concerns of of the IG community in the Arab region. Now, you're more familiar, with the topics at stake. For us, I think the priority would be to be able to participate in the policy-making process and make sure that the IG process is multi-stakeholder. That includes civil society as a main party in the discussions. And of course, there was a lot of concentration on respecting human rights online. And that's not a coincidence. I think this has been at the core of the IG issues that are relevant to the Arab region. Internet rights or human rights on the internet, it became more mainstream recently because of the Snowden revelation, but it actually has been on the agenda for quite some time now. So even though the physical representation of the Arab region was not that strong on the ground in Sao Paulo, however, the logistics of the meeting in terms of providing online remote participation to people helped getting more feedback. At that day, I remember it was from Tunis, from Algeria, it was from different countries in the Arab region. And this explains, the fact that people can't be there physically. It doesn't mean cannot contribute to the whole process. So remote participation, in my opinion, I was there physically. I think it was one of the most successful, achievements of that specific meeting, because it gave the impression that the process is truly inclusive and people could actually provide input in a public meeting, which included the president of Brazil and other high-profile, people and policymakers from all over the world. So I think it was good to be part of the historical moment that we can see another kind of rebirth of the IG process, far from the discussion that we have in the IGF. We thought that the whole meeting gained a lot of political, attention, and it gave kind of a leverage to the whole process. What made it really more kind of interesting is the fact that we had an outcome document which was called the Net Mondial Multi-Stakeholder Statement. And I think based on that, future arrangements with regards to, for example, the Net Mondial initiative that we just got to know this week, it would be led by World Economic Forum. So we can see that this is becoming kind of a high item on the agenda globally, regardless of the implications of putting this kind of process in the hands of World Economic Forum. I think it's a good opportunity to shed light, on the issues at stake, especially if the whole initiative manages to be more inclusive, to the voices of concerns of different stakeholders. Now, with regards to the Arab region, I think the contributions were, of course, in line with what other parts of the world are, concerned with, but there was kind of discrepancy between the needs, of in the IG field in the Arab region and what people think should be a priority and the priorities of the government. Now, I personally noticed that, multi-stakeholder principle is not necessarily one of the priorities of governments from the Arab region. We're still struggling with admitting the whole process should be multi-stakeholder, because at least the governments who were present there, especially Iran and Saudi Arabia, they really didn't believe in that principle, which makes the dialogue a little bit more challenging with those parties. I'm sure that there are more open governments, in the Arab region who are kind of more tuned into the multi-stakeholder notion. But the governments who made it to the ground there made a completely different impression on how things should roll, because these specific two governments still think that governance should be in the hands of government entities, and they tend to be more in tune with supporting the WSIS, process, regardless of what happened, in between. Now, the WSIS process is almost, I think it's a little bit over than 10 years now, and a lot of things happen in between. I think the two favorite, topics of these two specific governments is the fact that the WSIS process should be more supported, and of course enhanced cooperation. It's one of their favorites as well, but that's because personally I think it concerns only governments, and this is a weak. I think this is the weakest link when it comes to involving governments from the Arab region in the whole process, because they don't believe in the principle of multi-stakeholders, which makes actually involving civic actors, or third parties, internet users in the discussion very challenging. And it's not something that we can actually easily say can be done at the Arab region level. So this is one of the I think critical points that was noticed. Now, with the Net Mondial initiative, I mean, I could see that there are many many governments from the Arab region who are represented in the meeting that will take place next week in Geneva, namely, I think, United Arab Emirates, and that's because they hosted the WCIT meeting, and there are ministers from Egypt as well. Egypt has been quite active in the IG field, and it's regionally recognized as one of the pioneer countries involved in the IG discussion for a very long time for historical reasons. You might know about those reasons, but there are so many active people from Egypt in the whole process. I'd hoped that there will be other people from governments also involved in this process, and also civil society from the Arab region. I'm not seeing that at the moment, but maybe at a later stage there will be kind of a more balanced view, when it comes to including opinions from all over the world. Now, there is one thing that Net Mondial meeting focused on is the importance of mapping, the issues locally. And I think reinforcing the local, localization of issues will help, map, the global scene as well. So the work should definitely start locally and regionally before we go to the global level. And I think this is one of the reasons why having and establishing regional IGFs was very helpful into localizing the problems. So in the Arab region, I think we do have a dialogue in place, which is the Arab IGF, and it's one of the the fronts that we should use and try to utilize in order to bring the attention of the interests of civic actors, or the internet user interest in general. But I think there is a lot of work to be done. This year is the third edition of the Arab IGF. We have a huge problem engaging people, from the communities, because there isn't enough awareness about the whole process and about the importance of being involved in the process and so on. And that's why there is still a lot of work to be done on the ground. I know that many organizations are doing a lot of efforts to build the capacity, at the level of universities and institutions, and but I think there is still some space there to be filled in various countries. The good news is that because of the Arab IGF and the initiatives of organizations like ICANN, ISOC, RIPE, NCC, or Hivos, they do a lot of capacity building programs, and you can get information that will help you get your gears up, with regards to the IG issues at various levels, from the technical, side of it, from the DS industry side of it, freedom of expression and human rights issues. So there are a number of programs that are on the ground at the moment and providing a lot of kind of information and concrete plans on how to be integrated in the whole process, but I don't think it's enough. I think there is a huge gap, a knowledge gap in the Arab region, and that we should kind of all contribute and to help. Every little bit helps, I think, in this regard. And I think if you guys are had the chance, for example, to get one of the courses from Diplo or ISOC new generation leaders or Hivos programs, it's good to work as ambassadors, to raise awareness. I know a lot of people have been doing this, and I can see the fruit of the work that Diplo is being doing, is being replicated widely, globally, and including in the Arab region. So in short, that's what happened in that Mondial. I think we will see more. The outcome, of course, of that meeting will not be kind of sensed immediately. We still have to see what's going to evolve next week from the meeting that is organized in Geneva. And I think during the global IGF next week in Turkey, there will be a lot of discussions, over that and what happened there. I hope it's not going to steal the light, from the very excellent, program that we have in place this year and the global IGF. But I'm sure we will hear a lot about that and also other things that are happening at this stage. I mean, there is a lot happening. The IANA transition, the transparency mechanism of ICANN and how it works, or the oversight mechanism. There is WSIS plus 10, the CSCD group. There's so many things, wrapping in kind of this year. And I think by the end of this year we will definitely witness a transition phase when it comes to the whole IG process and how the global ecosystem will be either evolving into something else or preserved as it is, because the IGF mandate as well is finishing next year. So we don't know whether it's going to be extended or whether the Net Mondial initiative is going to replace it. Some people are saying the Net Mondial initiative is to reinforce the IGF. The IGF has a lot of support from different stakeholders. It has been subject to a lot of criticism as well, but I know for a fact that it evolved in the last 10 years to be one of the prime sites to discuss the policy issues and serves exactly the need why it was originally established for. That is to have a serious discussion about the policy development from various levels and from all the regions of the world. And I think preserving it will be a huge, plus for the people who are recently integrating the process and who would like to contribute. It has a lot of value because it just provides that kind of platform needed for people to discuss issues, and in my opinion that's why it has to be maintained. Now in parallel, there's a lot of other kind of conferences where you break down issues to be more specific, whether we're talking about IPv6 or the DNS industry. There are specialized forums, and the IGF just gathers everybody, and you have a wide choice of topics and people who can obviously add a value to the work that each one of us is doing, and that's why I think it's important to maintain it. Or if it can't be maintained, in my opinion, it would be good to to have a process which complements it or completes it in a way. Now, before I go on to the latest developments from the Arab region, and I have a long list of developments. I'm not sure if you'd be interested in knowing them all, but I think it would be good to take questions, about Net Mondial. I'm not sure if some of you managed to be there, or if you would like to ask any questions regarding the process itself, and not only the Arab region participation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the window, the chat window, and I should be able to pick them up. Unfortunately, we can't have an interactive session. We just you just can type your questions, and I'll answer them verbally. That's how. That's the extent to which we can be interactive in this session. So I can't see any questions about the process. I mean, feel free to read through the blog session of IGMENA.org. We've posted many articles about the Arab region participation, and I think there is even a translation to Arabic to one of the articles if you would like to read a kind of short analysis about what happened, what went down. And I think Diplo also covered most of the developments of Net Mondial. You should be able to view most of that content on Diplo platform. Now, if you don't have any questions about Net Mondial, I'd like to move on to the second theme of this meeting, which will highlight the most relevant developments in the MENA region. Okay, so I have a question from Abdurrahim Shalfwat. Is that what are the reasons why there is a little interest in IG in the MENA region? Yeah, this is a very good question. I think the most, valid reason for me at least is the series of kind of challenges that the region is going through in the last 3 or 4 years. This doesn't say that before there was an interest. There has kind of been a little interest from the region, but I personally think it's mainly because of the lack of initiatives at some point in time that will widely kind of scale activities at a large level to include a lot of people, in the process from the Arab region. But there is no doubt the recent political developments, the fragile situation in the Arab region, I think have nurtured, the fact that there is little interest from the audience of our region in this field. But thanks to Snowden, I think IG has become more mainstream. People are kind of looking into what's going on, more carefully. I admit that doing work in the MENA region is very far from being simple. It's very challenging because we had to rework a lot of concepts in a very simple way for the message to be delivered very simply, to the audience so they can understand exactly what we're dealing with, what are the issues at stake. I know that the terminology of the field is not the easiest, thing to deal with, especially that internet governance sounds really, really quite, it puts off a lot of people, and that's because of the term governance. It involves somehow governments, and it's not appealing, to people to know about that. A lot of people have been working really hard, to make these kind of, concepts quite easy and smoother to deal with. And there is a very, very recent initiative by the UNESCO focusing on translating the internet governance terminology to Arabic, to make sure that people understand what it stands for and what is at stake. And I think this kind of initiatives will just help people understand, and it will automatically convert them into people who are interested in the field and who are able to take over the discussion to the next level, either locally, regionally, or globally. Now, the good news is the whole process is open for people to contribute, because what the internet user, the end user, needs to understand, in my opinion, is that all the policies related to how the internet is governed will affect the way they use the internet today and in the future. And the whole process is set up in a way that it is multi-stakeholder. It allows people to, share their views and contribute either technically, and that can be applied in different and various forms. Engineers can definitely contribute at the IETF forms. People who are specialized in the DNS industry can contribute with ICANN and feed into what ICANN is doing, or Ripen CC, responsible for the distribution of IP addresses in the Middle East or Africa. They have a lot of capacity building programs, and whatever your interest is in IG can definitely be catered for in one of these organizations. So it's just a matter of outreach. Now, these people have been doing a lot of work, and they have a strategy to outreach people in the Middle East. It's just that there is always a limited number of people who get to know about these opportunities, and you keep seeing them on and on and on. And one of the reasons why we do IGMENA activities is to inject kind of like new blood from different regions, and different countries in the whole process. It's very hard to convert people, from participants who are just coming to our programs to learn something new into active people who can contribute in policies. Now, I can say that we have been quite successful in converting people to a certain extent, because I see a lot of active people. In the last 2 years, I see a lot of new faces, and they're doing great things, locally, and it's really fantastic, that we're able to scale our activities for the leadership to be taken locally. The only way we're going to have that happening is if we have core programs that will follow up on building the capacity of people from different, disciplines to be kind of more wired into the whole process. I can see other questions from our friend Nadira. I think her question is, usually the Arab representatives are government also. Why don't Arab representatives be part of organizing committees? Yes, good question. Good question. I think in global meetings you would see few people from the government or diplomatic missions of governments of the Arab region come into the meetings. I think the main issue is the financial limitation, that people can't come physically to meetings. But if I understand well, you ask a question why Arab representatives are not part of organizing committees. I think it's all got to do with the visibility of people who are more visible. They get the responsibility to be part of organizing committees. But I think not being in an organizing committee does not stop us from doing the work, that needs doing. If you would like to be part of a steering committee of any of the organizations or coalitions that are in place now, I think the door is open for everyone, but it's just a matter of being visible on the scene, and the contributions in the mailing list play a major role in the choice of people. And I think even as a member of a network, there shouldn't be the feeling that to do the work you have to be part of an organizing committee, because everybody has input and can contribute equally to the issues at stake without having to be in a steering committee or organizing committee. I will take another question from Fahmi. The governments, he's saying, are busy in politics. They just need someone to tell them, come and see what IG can do for all of us. That's what happened exactly with us in Yemen. I support you. I think probably our ministers, in the Arab region, they don't have the right advisors, around them to brief them on what's going on, because most of ministers, and I experienced that in the case of Morocco, our minister is very good now, but he doesn't have a special advisor who is specialized in the field and who knows exactly what's going on. Now, you see them involved in the process globally, but the lead, the government is not really taking the lead when it comes to addressing issues locally. And I don't think there is a local dialogue and so on. So I think every minister in the Arab region should definitely benefit from having an advisor who knows exactly what's going on in the global process, and how the internet can be used generally as a vector for development economy, because that's what's more appealing to governments in the Arab region. They really would like to hear how the internet can be an engine of growth, of economic development, to guarantee sustainable development. They definitely don't want to hear anything else, that is not associated with how the internet can help economically these countries. So, yes, so people who have access to their officials or government people, by all means, feel free to bug them and get them involved. It will work somehow. I know that Fahmi has been quite, active locally in Yemen, and congratulations for all the work that you've been doing locally. I think it's great, and I wish you all the luck. And yeah, it's quite, heartening to see that there are people who are taking the lead locally. From Amr Mustafa, he has question, what does it take to enlighten Arab citizens about the aspects of IG? Yeah, I think it takes a lot. It doesn't take just a program like IGMENA. I think it takes engagement, from the stakeholders at stake. In the Arab region specifically, the government plays a major role. It's a quite centralized system, and most of the initiatives emerge somehow from the government. I think if our governments would take a lead, into reinforcing discussions on IG issues locally, it would probably pick up better, in my opinion, because the work that is being done at the moment by international organizations have very limited levels of outreach. It's working. You can see that it targets specific segments, but I think the structure of how things work in the Arab region, regardless of what's needed to be done. Now, the IG process is the ideal world should be kind of bottom-up approach, but in the Arab region it's very hard to implement that, and that's why in some countries the government should take the lead when it comes to providing the necessary environment for the dialogue to take place and involve different stakeholders. This works, in some countries like Tunisia. We know that the governments have somehow, or to some extent, a participatory approach when it comes to discussing, the policies with the parties concerned. But there's always, the dark side of the story. I think what it takes is to have a more aware government, from the Arab region about these issues. And if that's clear enough for them, I'm sure things will take a completely different path. So to cut it short, I think the government got the key, to the door when it comes to reinforcing and strengthening the discussion about IG in the Arab region. So if we don't have any more questions about IG in the Arab region and Net Mondial and so on, we will move on to the latest developments taking place at the regional level. Okay, this year it has been really a quite active year and a busy year at various fronts. I mean, we've seen a lot of policy development in the Arab region, but the main theme that attracts my attention when I'm going through what's going on in different countries, there is an angle, of issues that take in the Arab region, and they evolve around, guaranteeing access to quality of service has been a main concern. We can see that in countries like Egypt and Iran and Syria for obvious reasons. I think the quality of service and access in general is still an issue. The quality of service is still a huge problem, where people are complaining a lot, about the speed of the internet. This just affects so many aspects of our daily life, or work life as well in the Arab region. The other angle is the impartial access to information or freedoms in general. Now, these issues, there is a lot that happened this year, but there are three striking examples that I will highlight to you very quickly. And I think if you want to go through more details, please feel free to ask me directly by email. I think one of the the main, highlights of this year is what happened in first in Jordan. The change in legislation, which obliges all people who have, what we call knowledge websites, whether it's an organization, whether it's it's just a website that is there to inform people about what's going on in the country. They're obliged now to register as a news website, and within a specific deadline. If it didn't happen, they had to be blocked, and this happened to a lot of people and news outlets, and from the government perspective, this is a regulatory requirement, and from the other side of the story, it's kind of limited. It's limited freedom of expression and freedom to receive, to impartially receive and send expression. Now, most of the legislation that is in place now, it evolves around maintaining national security or making sure that the order is in place, or like disciplinary kind of procedure, which makes sure that nobody is acting outside the law. Now, of course, this kind of defensive kind of position of the legislator in the Arab region is coming for a very good reason. It's basically to face all the insecurity threats and the very, very fragile political climates in these countries, and I think Jordan is one of them. So this development will definitely affect, freedom of expression, and it will affect, the rights to receive and send information freely, and and other rights. But the other side of the story is that the government is just trying to protect its back, and most of the decisions, that were taken at the regional level fall under the same kind of angle. Now, we know, probably people from the Arab region present at this webinar understand exactly the importance of national security and how it is a top priority at the moment in the agendas of governments. So it's the excuse, but it's unfortunately hindering a number of rights. Same thing applies on Iraq. What happened in the last 2 months was very kind of a precautionary decision by the government to cut the internet cut either internet completely or certain services to limit the impact of ISIS, or what is known now as ICE. So most of the decisions are trying to kind of put some order to the whole scene, to the political scene, and to the security and national security of the country. And most of these decisions are justified by the fact that these countries are going through a very kind of fragile phase at the moment. I think, in my opinion, to be completely honest with you, I understand those decisions. It's just sometimes when they're being taken as an excuse, to hinder certain rights online, then it becomes a little bit disturbing, because even the US, even democratic, countries have their own ways of censoring content or shutting down the internet completely. If you're following the news, you probably know about the role of the US in cutting the internet by mistake on Syria. That's what have been, circulated, but I don't know to what extent it's true. So, there are these kinds of processes in place, even by democratic regimes. It's not the point that the Arab region is in a transition phase, but there are certain decisions that can be justified only according to the specific circumstance that the country is going through, which makes it very, very hard to judge at some point who is democratic and who is not. There's also an important development in Tunisia. There's the creation of the, I think, the technical or the Internet Technical Agency, and it's almost like the equivalent of the NSA in the US. It has been received with wide kind of protests, and people are not just happy with this kind of decisions. But do you blame, the government in Tunisia? Because what example the NSA gave, to people, it's not a great example because every government now thinks they can do the same thing, and I can't blame them, to be honest with you. There's no example to refer to when it comes to respecting human rights online and respecting the fact that people have, rights like privacy, for example. It's really, really difficult, to set a precedent for this type of operations to take place, because you can't, give this type of precedent and expect, other countries to just, respect these rights online when you're not doing that. So, I mean, most of the policy developments in the region that happened this year, and there are so many, literally in every country in the Arab region, there has been either a revision of law to make sure that all the information is tracked and all people who are commenting online, including Facebook, are accounted for, and everybody can be tracked. This is one of the outcomes of Snowden revelations. And I think it's more like a protective, approach. It hinders the nature, of the internet as an open platform. So the effect of this kind of revelations will have, I think, a lasting impact in the long term of how we view, internet in general and certain kind of rights online, like privacy. Like this year, privacy has been one of the main kind of hot topics, and there will be a lot of discussion about that next IGF as well. I think it's just gaining a lot of attention now, and people are more concerned of how the data is being used. So I'm expecting kind of a lot of measures, even from tech companies like Twitter and Facebook, that are acting on it and trying to be just up to gear when it comes to providing the necessary adjustments for people to have the ability to monitor, their privacy, or at least kind of make sure it's under control. Where nothing is guaranteed, with the technical specification of all these services we're using. I mean, we really don't know to what extent we gave ourselves away. But I hope this is going to be, clarified somehow to all of us at some point in time, because the trick about technology is that none of us, I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I definitely don't know the technical specifications, of how certain services run. You just use them. There is a kind of a level of an awareness when it comes to these things, and I hope the IG discussion will bridge this technical knowledge gap that I call it. It should be mainstream. This type of information should be mainstream to everyone, so you know exactly what you're stepping into. I will take questions. We have 15 minutes, and then I think I will be talking about what do we expect from the MENA region in the IGF. So now I'm ready to take questions about the second part regarding the policy development. So Fahmi, he's saying that sometimes the problem with many stakeholders doesn't know about IG. Okay, we're still at knowledge about IG because, he's pointing at something that is very, very crucial. And it's something that we worked on, I remember, like 10 years ago with Diplo, is to find the right terminology for the word or for the concept of governance. The governance is really a very heavy term, and I think we can't get away, with finding another word, because even internet public policy seems to me like a very valid alternative. But I don't think, we can say it otherwise. Governance as a concept is quite heavy and it just doesn't sound good at all. If you want to talk, about this field to third parties who are not kind of familiar with the whole thing, they just get the wrong idea. And I have the impression that some governments, till now, they still think governance, for example, is just the business of governments. I mean, I realize that in my discussion with different people, and they get it completely wrong. That's very good. So Fanny is saying that he's getting very positive positive feedback on the establishment of a national IGF, which is great. I mean, that happened very fast in Yemen, in the case of Yemen, and I wish you all, all the good things and all the luck in organizing that. I'm not sure if you have any questions about the policy development. It would be great, if we can get a few questions on this part as well. I'm not sure if anybody has additions or something that, that you can add about this part. I'm trying to read through other questions to see if I missed any. I don't think so. Yeah, I think I managed to read through all the questions. Now, if we don't have any more questions, we just move on to the third and the last part. I've been doing all the talking. It feels awkward. Your questions is the only way I can actually say we're having a discussion about this, but never mind. This is the format of a webinar, and it seems like only one person has to do all the talking. The IGF. Now, of course, the IGF has been, in place for the last 9 years, I think. It's a great, as I said earlier on, it's a great opportunity to know what's going on, globally, with regards to IG. It gained a lot of popularity in the last 2 or 3 years. I have been involved since the first edition back in 2006, and I can see that certain stakeholders see the point of why this should be there. It has been really the main forum where actually all disciplines meet and discuss, everything related to the internet, either from the technology side, the policy side, the governments, NGOs, human rights groups, different, different people. We even have kind of new concepts this year, like ungovernance forum, which is unconventional forum for people who don't want to attend or, would like to raise other issues. But they didn't have probably the opportunity to do that during the forum. This year it will be in Turkey, in Istanbul. I think it's a very kind of significant city to illustrate the mix, of two cultures. Half of it is in Asia, the other half is in Europe, and I think it's mostly associated as well. Turkey as a country mostly associated with the Middle East, and I think that's why there will be huge representation from the Arab region for the first time this year. We have a fellowship program. Hivos is going to bring two kind of generations of our programs of 2013 and 14 to take part in the policy process. We're not reinventing the wheel. This is what Diplo has been doing, for the last, I think, 9 years. And we're just trying to kind of take on the responsibility to do it for the Arab region people. I remember my first participation back in 2006 was with DiploFoundation, and I think it was a very good experience, to be more exposed to the policy, kind of to the global policy scene, and you get to see how things are done in a practical way. Now, it's true the IGF has been also a talk shop. It's the brand, the forum. But I have to say this is the exact reason why it was established, is to people to talk and exchange, ideas on what's going on. I'm expecting the whole forum to be taken over by this MENA Mondial initiative and the very kind of laborious process ICANN is going through now. It's a huge transition phase, and I think there will be a lot of question marks that needs answering from the ICANN people, and I mean the management of ICANN, about the transition of the IANA functions, about the oversight, as I said, of ICANN and the GAC involvement in the decision-making process, and there is a lot. And of course, all eyes will be on Turkey, and this is one of kind of the things that IGF has been contributing into, is that whenever we organize it in a country, it brings a lot of heat to that country. It's not even about the internet anymore. It's about everything else that is happening in that country. And Turkey this year has been at the forefront of doing a lot of adjustments which affected the internet industry or the internet use, and I think we will see a lot of discussions about that as well. I'm expecting the debate to be heated, and I think we've seen kind of new innovative approach of how the whole management system of the workshops is established. I think it's good news. It's more organized, and I think people need to pace themselves out to be able to get the best out of kind of this experience from the MENA region. Nadira, we have a lot of people now from the Arab region, and they will be all over, kind of the place, and see how we can be part of the all the picture, to be part of the whole picture. And we have great people, who prove to be really very good at what they do, true leaders who are able to, take over, the fight for representing the region, the fight for having a voice in international process, and I'm confident, that all the people who will be representing the MENA region will do their best, to kind of integrate this important process. It can be intimidating a little bit at the beginning. One of the challenges would be to kind of contribute fully to the whole thing, because it's in English, and that's one of the major reasons why speaking in English is very important in this kind of forums. But there will be, of course, translation in the main sessions to the different UN languages. However, I think all the workshops will be led in English, it can be a limitation. It's a challenge, but I hope the damage will be kind of limited. What I'm expecting else from the Arab region, I think for me, it will be the first time, in 9 years, seeing a large group of people from the Arab region, and I think it's a great achievement that, we managed somehow to contribute into making that happen in reality. We will wait and see. We're trying to kind of disperse the sessions among people, so we can, report back to the community and people who didn't manage to make it to the forum. We're also organizing a hangout session the last day of the forum. It's a Friday, and it will basically be led with some of the fellows who will be on the ground to share their experience, with the wider community. And I hope that will work in attracting the attention of people to be more engaged in the process. But we also plan to report back on the sessions, so we constructively, comment on what happened and what went down, for people to have valuable content, to refer to when they want to know what happened during the sessions. Now, there are reports for each meeting, and I think if you want to know the details for people who can't make it there physically, there will be, chairman's reports, session reports for the main sessions, and I think for the workshops there will be rapporteurs appointed by the workshop organizers. If you are interested in a specific topic, I advise you strongly to access the database that was prepared by the IGF to have an overview about the workshops that are planned. It's really good. It's very, very useful, and you can have a clear idea who is doing what and who will be talking about what. I think Nadira thinks that there is a great competence, or I think competent people from the MENA region, which we need to expand to more. Yes, I totally agree with you. I think, as I said, all the efforts in place, are helping the engagement. The engagement exercise is not an easy exercise. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of kind of commitment from the people you're working with. And as I said, there is a huge difference between inviting people to take part in capacity building programs or online trainings to active, elements in the process, because there is a lot of learning to be done in between these two kind of phases. One thing that is for sure, the interest of people is triggered if we deliver the message to them in a proper way. I think it's the responsibility of people who are already involved in the process to trigger the interest of the newcomers and keep them interested in this process. And that's why the way in which we deliver our content, for people to take over is very important. So yes, there are a lot of capacities and capabilities, great people around. We just need to find them and convert them into people who will be taking over, the representation from the Arab region. I have a question from Ahmed. He thinks that most of the representatives from the Arab region are focusing on technical issues more than other issues such as privacy and internet rights. Yes, the whole internet governance discussion started because of technical issues. Now, internet governance for a lot of people, especially the veterans in the field, is still related to the technical deployment of the internet and how it is managed. The part that is more relevant to countries in the Arab region, it is related to the content. Infrastructure, of course, is important because we have a lot of issues with, as I said earlier on, with access and quality of service. But governance issues in the Arab region are mostly kind of tied with the content and how content is managed in general. And privacy as a concept, for example, it is not widely recognized as something that people care about in the Arab region, and we are aware of it. I mean, there is a lot of work that needs to be done, to raise awareness and kind of, introduce people to this concept and, try to bridge that knowledge gap that exists now when it comes to, raising awareness about privacy, the importance of privacy, and so on. I think there is already a lot of research and surveys that are taking place to show how people in the Arab region are concerned really with their privacy. And I looked at some statistics, and it just looks really, really very alarming. And I was very concerned that people really don't care about that privacy in the Arab region. So there is a need of a lot of work, to kind of put these issues very high in our agenda to focus on them. And I think having the Arab IGF, it's a good opportunity, to focus more on these issues that are relevant, for the Arab region. I think there is an opportunity to submit proposals, for workshops, and I think it would be really, really great if the community that is active now in internet governance from the Arab region to, put forward the proposals to host workshops specific to issues at stake. This is, I think, the right opportunity for us to capitalize on such, opportunities to bring these issues to the surface. So I'd encourage you, to for example, propose a workshop around this theme. Okay, well, I think if we don't have any more questions, I'll probably leave a minute for people to ask questions. It takes longer maybe to write a question than asking it verbally. So I'm not sure if the host has any questions for me or any of the participants. It has really been great to see you all, and thank you for showing up for this session. And I hope to see you all in Istanbul. I know that some of you will be there on this list, so I'm looking forward to meeting you there. We will have a booth in the IG village. So after you stop by Diplo, feel free to stop by a Hivos booth, and if you have any questions there, we'll be happy to answer. And I really appreciate your time. If you don't have any more questions, thank you very much and have a great day.